Hi gardeners, it's week 2 of Garden Club. Today we're going to plant our pea microgreens, but first let's check and see how our plantings grew that we planted last week. Let's check on our tomatoes first. Have yours come up? Mine have just come up. You can see that the little leaves that are coming out are actually those cotyledon leaves or the seed leaves that are curled up inside the leaf, and those just have enough energy to get the plant growing. And now we're going to wait for some true leaves to start to grow. And then those little cotyledon leaves will eventually just drop right off. Different kinds of things will affect how quickly your seeds grew. The most important one would be heat. So if your seeds are in a cooler place, they might not be up yet, or if they were in a warmer place, they might be even bigger. And now that they're up, the most important thing that these little leaves need right now is light. Tomatoes love sun. So try to find your absolute sunniest window and put your tomato plants in there so they can start getting some light and start to photosynthesize. And another really important thing is water. Now these little peat or cardboard kind of very small pots can dry out so quickly. Even in one day they can run out of water and the plants will start to die. So it's really a super idea to put some water in the bottom of your lid. And that way your plants can be soaking up water from the bottom, and the pots themselves can stay moist all the time. So the water on the bottom of your lid or saucer will protect your little seedlings from drying out, which is super important. So you'll have to check them every day to make sure they've got enough water. And you can use your mister on top too. So we're going to keep our tomato plants inside because it's still cold out, and once they start to grow some true leaves, then next week we'll be transplanting them into bigger pots. All right, let's take a look at our peas. Let's check our germination paper first. How did yours do? Did they germinate? Did they start to sprout? One of mine rotted and one hasn't come up very well, but one of them has a root and a little leaf coming out. So remember, the seed has the seed coat that has to soak up the water to get started, and then it has the little root, and then it has the seed leaves that are curled up inside the leaf, and then it has just a little germ of the beginning of the real leaves. So you can see the parts of the seed coming out really well in this big pea. Which part of your little seed came out first? Was it the root? The root comes out so that it can start to grow deep really fast and start to pull water up from the soil. That way the plant can start growing. You can imagine that your little tiny tomato seed did the same exact thing inside its pot before it popped up, right? Well, you can take any of your little seedlings and you can plant them into your big pea pot, or you can just put these back in the germination paper and see what happens, or you can just put them in the compost pile. All right, let's check on our big pea pot. Have yours started to sprout? Mine are just coming up. I can see 3. I think you can see them in there. If your pea seeds have come up, you can put them outside. Peas and all vegetables need a lot of sun. So peas need at least 6 hours of sun a day if possible. So the trick is to find a place outside where you get lots of sun. So that could be a back step or a south side of a building or maybe a back patio. And you're going to choose the spot where you see sun a lot of the day. So we can put this right outside, and you don't need to water it too terribly much because it's a big pot. It's holding a lot of water. You can see those roots of those peas are going down really deeply quickly. And so what you're going to do is just stick your finger in about 2 inches deep, like maybe up to here. And if it feels moist, you probably don't need to water it. So you might need to water it maybe 2-3 times a week. You don't want to overwater it, and you definitely don't want it to dry out. But while the seeds have not all come up, mine have not all come up, I'm going to keep misting the top too, so that the top where the seeds are is definitely moist. And I might keep this one inside for another 2 or 3 days until I see all the seeds come up, and then stick it outside, just because they do like warmth to come up a little faster. So of course we've talked about what plants need to grow, and they need soil, water, sun, air, and warmth. So the soil is the part that's giving the plants the nutrients. So in the soil are the major nutrients: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and also minerals like iron and calcium. And the best soil is full of plant life. It has microbes like bacteria and fungi. It has earthworms and other little creatures crawling around in there. And they're eating up the organic matter, which is like the little pieces of leaves and wood chips and plant debris. They're eating that up and they're breaking it down into nutrients that the plants can get. So they're feeding the plants with all of these healthy nutrients. So the life in the soil is so important. And of course, water, we talked about that. The water is providing a place for the nutrients to go so that the plants can suck them up through their roots like a straw. So the water holds the nutrients in the soil, and when the plants suck up water, they're getting all of those nutrients. Also, the water is so important for plants to keep their plant cells rigid or turgid so that they can still operate. And the water is also used in photosynthesis, so very important. And of course, plants need air. And the air is the carbon dioxide that they use for photosynthesis, and that's coming from the air out here. But the soil air is also important. They need oxygen in the soil for their roots. And of course, they need warmth so that the seeds can germinate, and the seeds use warmth to come up so that they know that they're starting to grow at an appropriate time to actually emerge and come out and grow. But let's talk a little bit more about the sun and the light and the photosynthesis. What's that all about? So in photosynthesis, the plants are using the energy from the sun or from a bright light. They're using the energy from the sun, and they're using the carbon dioxide in the air, and they're using the water, and they're taking all of those things and combining them in a chemical reaction to create sugar. And the sugar in the plants turns into healthy carbohydrates and starch. So your plants are going to have to photosynthesize a lot to make those peas for us and the tomatoes. That's why they need a lot of sun. And through the process of photosynthesis, plants exhale oxygen, which is super important for the whole entire planet. Now, one thing about putting your peas outside is you might have to watch out for animals. Are you in a place where you have deer or squirrels? I am. So we have to think about how we might need to protect this pot. One thing is to put it right near the house where hopefully the animals don't come as much, but squirrels might still come and dig around in here, and they would love to eat these tender pea shoots. So you could put something in there to scare off animals, like maybe a pinwheel, or you can cover the pot with something that will let the light in but keep the animals out, like some sort of net or screen. You could also put some dog hair on there to scare off animals. They don't like the smell of that. You could put some smelly organic fertilizer, like some bone meal or blood meal, which really stinks and really scares off animals. One idea might be a couple of coat hangers. You could just bend some wire coat hangers and kind of stick them like this over your pot. I'm thinking maybe 2, and that might keep those squirrels out of there, just until your plants are big and sturdy. Once your plants get big and sturdy, then the squirrels digging won't be as much problem, but the deer will still be a problem for peas. So, farming with nature. Now let's plant our pea microgreens. Microgreens are when you grow a lot of seeds and you pick them when they're really, really small. So they're micro, which means small. We're going to cover the pot with lots of pea seeds, and then we'll let them grow about 1 inch or 2 or maybe 3 inches, and just cut them off, and they're full of nutrients. They're really dense with nutrients and very, very delicious too. So you still have some extra pea seeds left, and hopefully you have a little bit of your soil left too that you saved. So what we're going to do first is fill our pot with half of the potting soil we have left. We have to leave the other half for our tomato pot. And then let's moisten this soil a little bit. I'm going to pour some water in and stir it around with your trowel or maybe a popsicle stick. Now we can put our pea seeds right on top. Another thing you can do is you can actually soak your pea seeds for about 12 hours or 24 hours before you plant them, and that will speed up their germination because the seed coat has already started to soften up so that the seed can germinate. So that's another idea. But we can also just use the seeds just so. So let's put a bunch of seeds in there. You can put them in so that they're almost touching each other, but seed them pretty thickly. For the microgreens, we're not going to use the rhizobia bacteria because these are just going to grow for a few weeks and then we're going to cut them and eat them, so they don't need to have that whole symbiotic relationship with the bacteria that are going to be feeding the plants. This is just quick. Now take a little bit more of your soil and just cover your seeds, maybe about 1/2 inch. This is different than when we plant microgreens with tiny little seeds like broccoli or arugula. We just lay them on top. But pea seeds are bigger, and so to make sure that they're getting enough water, we're going to put them under the moist soil. I'm giving them lots of water to get started. Now I'm going to make a tag. It's going to say Sugar Ann, snap peas, and a date. And I'm going to put this again onto a little lid or saucer so that we can add some water to the saucer, and that will help this pot. This pot is very dry, and this water will soak up into the pot itself to keep everything nice and moist. And then there's one more thing we're going to do here, which is we're going to cover our microgreens with a lid. And that is going to keep everything nice and humid in there, like a little greenhouse, and also keep the light out. My tag doesn't quite fit at this point, so I'll just probably stick it on the saucer or maybe on top. Now, you're gonna watch your little microgreen pea seeds every day. Check and see if they need water. If the surface feels dry or looks dry, give them a spritz, because we do need the seeds to stay moist so they can germinate. And then, when you start to see them coming up and germinating, leave your lid on one more day so that they all start to come up. And then you can take your lid off and put it in a sunny window. Once they come up, they do need light, right? So these should start to come up just like our other peas, the exact amount of time, probably about a week. And we can do our first microgreen harvest in about 1.5 weeks. So this week, you have to check your tomatoes every day to make sure that the saucer has water and they're not drying out, because these could dry out really quickly. And these are staying indoors in a very sunny window. And then you have your microgreens, so we're going to check these every day to make sure they have enough moisture, and you're going to leave the cover on, and as soon as you see them just start to poke out of the soil, leave the cover on one more day, and then remove it and put it in the sun, right? And then you've got your big peas, you're putting them outside, and you're making sure the animals aren't bothering them, and check them every few days to make sure they're moist, but they won't need water every day. Just stick your finger in a couple of inches to see if it still feels moist, and if it does, they don't need water. Okay, great job everybody. We'll see you next time for more gardening. Have a great week. Bye.